Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Let's resume our discussion. Uh, we were discussing earlier that the method of Talim uh, changed at- in some period after a few hundred years, and there is a report from a tourist whose name was Abul Qasim ibn Hawkal. It was around 400 Hijri. Uh, he traveled a good part of the whole world, and then he wrote some uh, report type book. Uh, that was a trend then. Some tourists, after a long travel, used to write this sort of books, which could be used as a source of information. And he wrote there. Then everywhere he found Muslims. For in 400 Hijri, the I mean most part of the world was full of masjids. So as he wrote, everywhere he found the masjid to have the effort of Talim in it. In each and every masjid, he found the effort of Talim. Okay, so that's the report at at 400 Hijri. He also wrote that he didn't find anywhere that the Muslims selected any place outside the masjid as a place for talim. Any place other than the masjid, the Muslims selected as a place for talim, he didn't find anywhere. So what does it mean? Okay, I mean we're not sure that if his reports could include everything, every single area, but pretty much we can conclude that uh, until 400 Hijri, there was no madrasa. I mean, Muslims never selected or built any place, okay, outside the masjid for the purpose of talim. It was always the masjid, okay, which was used as the place for talim. And it doesn't mean that they never did talim outside the masjid. Of course they did. Whenever they met with each other, they used to actually transfer ilm. They used to exchange ilm. Even in marketplace, when they traveled together, everywhere. That was a common practice among themselves. They used to exchange ilm. So talim was there, okay, but what I'm talking about is selecting a place for the purpose of talim.
Outside the masjid for the
Purpose of talim, or building a place for the purpose of talim. That never happened for around 400 years after Rasulullah. Now, brother, can you tell me if the word computer exists in Quran? Think of all 6666 verses of Quran. Do you think the term computer exists anywhere in Quran? Okay, it doesn't. Can you find this word in Hadith? Consider the whole storage of Hadith. It's like 3 million. Roughly, the whole content has almost 3 million Hadith. Or any statements from Sahaba radiallahu anhu? Would you find the word computer? Why you would not? Because the advent of computer occurred long after those days, right? The inception of computer uh, has a timeline which is long after the period of Sahaba radiallahu anhu. Now I'm gonna ask you about two things. These two things are madrasa and khanka. Okay, Khanka sometimes I think often called Zawiya. So can you tell me if these two words, madrasa and Khanka, or they are synonyms, okay, exist anywhere in Quran, Hadith, or the statements of Sahaba? Do you think? Can you find these words over there? What do you think? You cannot. You cannot find these words for the same reason. For the same reason, the advent of computer occurred long after those days. Similarly, as he said, after 400 years, the madrasa was introduced. So these words you cannot find in Quran, Hadith, or in the statements of Sahaba. Madrasa, Khankar, Zawiya, whatever, they are synonyms. These words you cannot find. Okay? People say that masjid is the house of Allah and madrasa is the house of Prophet. They don't think, it's completely nonsense. They don't think the house of why Rasulullah did not build his house. He never built this house, right? No Sahaba built it. Okay. So it didn't exist. It just didn't exist. Long after like 400 years, it was introduced. So how can it be a part of Deen? How can it be a part of Deen? Okay. Um, but I don't mean to say that the people who were involved in the establishment of madrasa and its maintenance, or who ran madrasa thereafter, were uh, not, were derailed. No, it's not like that. Because, do you remember why there is no complaint against them? Because of three reasons. What are they? Do you remember? Halat, istidat, takaza. Condition and qualities or abilities and demand. Okay. So considering the demand is that you have to run the efforts. Okay. So Alhamdulillah, they did so, and we must have the impression that their efforts are fully accepted by Allah, because these people, the we are talking about the people who are on the who are on the hawk path. So their efforts were completely, inshallah, it was absolutely accepted or granted by Allah, and Allah is satisfied with them. May Allah give them rewards, and we are indebted to them fully, because uh, we received haq or deen through their efforts. Based on their efforts, deen has been carried over to us. Okay? Deen has been carried over to us. So we are absolutely indebted to him, and there is no way we can repay. However, that doesn't mean that their method followed Sunnah. It had a huge deviation from Sunnah method. So although their method was not Sunnah, it helped us a lot, and there is no complaint uh, about whatever method they used. So we have to have the understanding of both of these. Okay, that this um, uh, this their contributions, okay, are great, and we must honor them fully. But on the other side, we need to admit that that method is not there, because we need to understand exactly the uh, how however it is. Okay, just as it is, deen should be understood by everybody, and in the grave there will be a question about deen. If we understand deen the way it has been descended, then we will be able to answer the third question in the grave properly. Let's now talk about some of the differences of the procedures or methods used in the madrasa compared to what was what existed in the days of Sahaba radiallahu anhu. I don't think even the methods of madrasa matched by 10% with Sahaba radiallahu anhu. You see, first of all, as we already mentioned, the madrasa folks don't use the masjid as the place for talim. That makes a huge difference. I'll later tell you why it makes the big difference. Secondly, the teachers uh, you receive salaries as opposed to working voluntarily. Okay? So their services are not volunteer. Thirdly, the admissions are restricted or selective. Right? Anyone can't join their talib. Okay, only people have to go through some admission procedure, and if they are allowed, okay, if they can overcome the admission procedure, then they will be allowed to participate in their uh, efforts of talim, and they have to register, do all these processes, okay, and there are examinations, okay, based on which they are given certificates. So there's grading on the examinations, okay. Based on that, there can be annual promotions, and at the end they will be given certificates. So these things don't match at all with Sahaba radiallahu anhu. These are some basic uh, I mean in the methods, they constitute some basis. As you have these new basic guidelines in the method, the whole method becomes completely different, because the students now uh, they study for the degree, okay, and there are many other things like degree awarding events, and uh, and beating up kids. There is no single event from Sahaba radiallahu anhu that beat up uh, they used to beat up their kids, neither their own kids nor kids of other people. There is no single event. If I tell you that Rasulullah beat up some kids, would you believe? You won't. And his sunnah Sahaba radiallahu anhu followed. Okay. There are some events like someone was chained and all that, but that's a different story. Beating up and chaining is not the same, first of all, and that was a very special case. Anyway, you may also notice that because of the madrasa system is now very similar with the mainstream worldly schools. Okay, the education system used in mainstream uh, school system. So that matches with the madrasa system almost fully. Almost really. They are very similar. And because of their great similarities, in Bangladesh, uh, a master's degree could be easily ascribed to the completion of Dawra. Okay, because the government found that, well, they have almost the same type of education procedure. Okay, as I said, admission procedures, then examinations, promotions, grading, and all that. Okay, it matches so well. Okay, so after completion of a particular level, we can ascribe a degree to that. That would fit in well. Okay. So it's completely different from Sabran. It matches with the worldly education system. Brothers believe, remember that for worldly activities, the prophets did not bring any method. The worldly activities are part of deen that they brought. But for the worldly activities, they didn't bring any method. But for all deeni activities, they brought both, the amals along with the procedures for the amals, for each and every amal. Okay, but for I mean, say how you cultivate your field, how you apply some technology, these things prophets, I mean, didn't bring any procedure for. So, so similarly for worldly education that you, I mean, use for worldly purposes. Okay? Say how you, I mean, you learn engineering or medical sciences and apply that for worldly purposes, right? So how you learn that? That's also part of the whole activity, worldly activities. I mean, applying those technologies and learning the technologies, they all fall in the same category of worldly activities, for which the prophets didn't bring any method. So how you learn engineering, how you learn medical sciences or other technologies or similar things, it's the sunnah is you use them efficient way. Okay, this the prophets didn't bring how you do that, but just the sunnah is you use an efficient way for that. Okay, then you fulfill the sunnah. So the normal schooling system and so they all follow the apparently the sunnah method, because they try to use some efficient method. Okay, although I mean the efficiency is not very good, but nevertheless we can say that it's pretty much following the sunnah method. The schools, I'm I'm talking about the normal, the mainstream education system for worldly education. Okay, so for worldly education there is no given method, there is no divine method. Okay, so you make up some method and if try to make it a in a make it a efficient, and then that follows sunnah. But for dini education, the method is divine. Why you follow something else? Why you use another method? The method is already given to you. So if you don't accept that method, then you are violating sunnah. You are not using sunnah. And according to kalima, when you don't use sunnah, it's no longer din. Din is founded on the kalima. If you, okay, for anything, like say when you eat your meals, if you don't use the sunnah method, then no matter how much you eat, it's not din. And when you eat in the sunnah method, then it is din. And you also have to, the first part of the kalima says that you also have to do it with the understanding, with the belief that Allah will give rewards. Allah is the giver. He will give rewards for following the sunnah. Okay, everything is provided by Him. With this understanding, you follow the sunnah, then uh, it it can be called following deen. So no matter how much you teach and learn there, as you ignore the method of sunnah, it can't be deen. Okay, it can't be deen. So that's why I mean in Urdu it said that ये दीन की तालीम है लेकिन ये दीन नहीं, ये दीन की तालीम है लेकिन ये दीन नहीं. Meaning that like when you eat but not in the sunnah method, it is still eating something, right? You swallow food through your mouth and then it can be called eating. So whenever, even if you are not following the sunnah method, it is still eating, and you will have food inside, and you will also have strength out of your food, you will also have benefits out of your food. Okay, that will occur, but the job of eating has not been done. Could you get the point? Similarly, when you learn ilm, the divine ilm, but not in the sunnah method, then you can actually acquire the knowledge ilm, and you also get benefit out of it. Okay, you can give masala or whatever. Okay, you can benefit out of it, but the job of acquiring knowledge can't be called din, because in that process you didn't follow the sunnah method. So it is talim, it is still talim, because you have acquired ilm. Now you have ilm inside. Once you do that, you get ilm inside, and you also can benefit out of that ilm inside. But the job of acquiring ilm can't be called din. So ye din ki talim, it is talim, but it is not din. It is a process of acquiring ilm, but it is not din. Could you get the point? Ye din ki talim hai, lekin ye din nahi. It's a process of acquiring ilm, but it can't be called din.